Hello, I'm Mantastic'c and Fantastic, and today I want to talk about the Valentine's rare egg machine that has just gone live in North America. So, like basically every other seasonal event out there, Valentine's is an underwhelming affair from a rolling point of view. The reason for that is it costs 5 magic stones, which is obviously on the low end, but the rolling rates are terrible. There is a 3% chance to get any of the top or 9-star rarity cards, but at the same time, the 5 and 6-star, which are the two lowest bottom rarity cards, have essentially 0 value for basically any given player, and they comprise essentially 3/4 of the rolling pool. So you are much better off just monster exchanging and or directly purchasing the orb skins if you are interested in those respective cards. With that in mind, I'm going to only look at the monster exchangeable cards, the orb skin cards, and maybe a card or two I think that's worth mentioning, but at the same time you have to roll them, so that can be a little distressing. So the first card I want to take a look at is the 9-star Alynna, who is now going to be arguably the best fire cleric we have available. So before I go a little bit further, I want to explain why clerics are such an important role on a given team, because essentially every single dungeon has some sort of instance of bind, awoken bind, or unmatchable, and usually all three of them at some point. So you need to have a dedicated card who can counter those mechanics, and the lower the cooldown, the better the card is. And Alynna is a 5-turn cooldown for a full cleric active. When I say full cleric, I mean it clears all bind, all awoken binds, all unmatchable. And that's huge. Usually a non-transforming card would have a much longer cooldown, so having it at 5 turns puts her on par of transforming cards, and it gives her a bit of an edge because in theory you can give her 6-slot latents that might be able to improve her damage output, but that may not be relevant here. But more so, the bigger issue is you're able to inherit a delay, a haste, something that helps you get going at the beginning of the dungeon, because a transforming card oftentimes does not have an active skill that helps you get going, or they're just kind of dead weight until they transform. Alynna is not that case, so in theory, you can enter a dungeon, you can delay the first floor, and then you can transform your other cards with ease. If we compare her to Ami no Uzume, who is arguably one of the better clerics out there for red, they have similar color coverage, but Ami has much lower attack stat, and her cooldown is 8 turns instead of 5. And that's obviously a big deal because Ami doesn't, come up as often. And if there are spawns of repeated spawns or closely spaced spawns with awoken binds, unmatchable, etc., you're gonna have a much harder time with Ami as your cleric. Furthermore, Ami does buff RCV, which may or may not be meaningful, but Alynna actually generates 6 fire orbs from non-wood and non-hearts, and that is important because it doesn't overwrite wood. And the reason why that is valuable is because Seawolf, who is arguably the best red leader at this point in time, converts wood to water orbs. So you are going to help preserve Seawolf's activation clause. Christmas Grimoire is just random 3 hearts and 3 fire. So in theory, you might get orb trolled by using Christmas Grimoire, which is again a possible problem as well. So Alynna just fits so well in Seawolf teams, and looking at her awakening, she's got 2 enhanced heart combos and a huge RCV stat, so she's a great healing solution for any given team. So I feel like she has strong value moving forward. Her damage output is respectable because her attack stat is actually quite high. She's an incredibly low cooldown cleric that is not transforming, which lets you inherit delay, haste, shields, or whatever you need on top for floor 1, which is meaningful. So as a whole, is this worth monster exchanging for? It can be to a certain extent. If you have a big thing, you love red-based teams, maybe red's your favorite color, it's definitely a stronger option compared to other clerics we have at this point in time. And it will be definitely an upgrade. But at the same time, is it something you need to have? Ami does a pretty good job, and Christmas Grimoire is also pretty strong as well. So I guess to a certain extent, it comes down to what other options did you have available. Is it going to be a massive upgrade or a minor upgrade, so to speak? Because the other 2 9-star cards in this event I think are actually quite worth trading for, and if trade fodder is limited, you may be better off with those other 2 cards. So let's take a look at Valentine's Ideal, who was... Wait, where is she? Valentine's Ideal. So Valentine's Ideal is going to start helping put Rainbow back into the meta. And that's obviously meaningful because Rainbow has basically been languishing in misery for this point in time because they're just not as strong as Daytona, Seawolf, Royal Oak, where these monocolor super strong powerhouse teams. And What makes a leader strong is high effective health. At this point in time, Blackbird Daytona with 11.11 times effective health is as low as we really can go. Like, if you go any lower than that, you're just gonna really suffer, I feel like. The 16 times from, like, say, Double Royal Oak is just so stable and safe. And if we look at what are arguably some of the better Rainbow leaders up until this point of, like, the Story Sequoia and Beach Mariel, you'll notice that both of them have 11.11 times effective health. So, well, essentially 11.11 times. Like, it's on the lowest end of, like, what's barely passable at this point in time. So, if a leader comes out that's bulkier, it just automatically makes them a stronger option. And Valentine's ideal, regardless if you pick her base form or her evolved form, her dark form, she still is 16 times effective health. That is a big deal because you can survive significantly more hits. Team building becomes more flexible. And in addition to that, they also have an RCV multiplier, which is a big deal as well, because when your RCV multiplier is the same as your health multiplier, it's quite easy to heal back up, because when you think about it, 1 times health, 1 times RCV, that's like the norm. So this is kind of normalized, so to speak. And that means you don't need to run a healing solution. RCV debuffs become less detrimental overall. And just being bulkier right away gives Valentine's Ideal an edge over the other Rainbow-based leaders currently available. In addition to having bulk, what makes another strong aspect for a leader is consistent activation. And Valentine's Ideal only needs to match any 4 colors. Any 4 colors, doesn't matter. Much less restrictive than Sequoia, who can only match red, blue, wood, and light orbs. 4 specific is much harder than 4 of any color. So Valentine's Ideal, again, their leader skills are essentially identical, except they have follow-up attack or auto follow-up attack instead. And Dark has a bit of a higher attack multiplier, but pretty similar otherwise. But point of the matter is, easy activation. So we're bulky, and it's easy to activate. And at this point in time, we also have Akine, like Valentine's Akine, like she is incredibly strong, and I'll get to her shortly. So Rainbow just got multiple strong options. And in the future, we're going to have the Illusory Artist eventually arrive. We're also going to have the A10 recolors. So Rainbow has a lot of love in the future. So picking up Valentine's Ideal can be meaningful. Is she as strong as the Artist card? Not as strong, but Ideal is tradable. The Artist card is not tradable. But at the same time, if you don't have Valentine's Ideal, you can, in theory, just pair with a friend and use your own Sequoia or Beach Mariel. In theory, it can actually work out. So, like, the bulk is definitely lower, but it is a compromise, so to speak. Not ideal, but it does work out. So, like, trading for her can be valuable, but at the same time, leaders tend to get power crept faster than any other type of card out there. So let's take a little bit of a closer look at Valentine's Ideal now that we've established that they are a strong leader because of high bulk and easy enough to activate leader skill. They only have to use balanced or dragon type cards, and there's enough out there that you can make something competitive. So looking at their awakenings are identical, so I'm not going to flip-flop between them. They have 777 combo, bonus movement time, and through their super awakenings, they can get the 4 attribute boost. You can get cloud or tape resist, but with the 4 attribute boost and the 777 combo, that's 28 times personal damage. That's better than double 10 combo, and we know double 10 combo is great. So Ideal actually can deal meaningful amounts of damage, which means if you use the VDP latent, strong likelihood she's going to be hitting the 1.5 times damage cap. And then in the future, if you do get the Artist for better access to Void, Damage Void, and you can say, I don't need the VDP latent, double damage capping becomes more feasible. But point of the matter is, VDP latents all around works quite well for Rainbow teams, and her personal damage multiplier is high enough to make it relevant. So solid damage output right away. And for her active skill, it changes ever so slightly between the forms. Dark form is movement time, base form is RCV buffing. So you should really pick whatever is most important or missing from your given team. And regardless of which one it is, both of them give you 3 turns of that specific buff, and then you fully clear unmatchable orb effects and all bind and awoken bind clears. Or no, sorry, all awoken binds. So not regular binds, but you should be bind immune anyways. But basically a full cleric active skill, and it says 12 turns, but it's really 6 turns due to skill charge, and assuming you hit 5 colors every single turn, this will charge up quick enough to be reliable enough. And then at the same time, in addition to the cleric aspect and the time or RCV buff, you get to unlock the board and then make 5 colors plus hard orb. So guaranteed activation for VDP latent, skill charge, etc., and her own leader skill. So it's a strong leader overall, and the best part is because she's not transforming, you can utilize 7x6. So basically, you enter the dungeon with someone with a 7x6 leader skill like Urika, Diablos, Sophie, Cecilia, whatever it may be. You enter the dungeon with them, and then you can leader swap your ideal into place, and now you're having a good old time on 7x6 with a bulky leader skill, because in theory, double Valentine's ideal on 7x6 is quite bulky. 16 times effective health with a bigger board, life becomes easier. Of course, you should be mindful of the fact that there are no Skyfalls, but with a 7x6 board, I don't think it should really be an issue from an orb troll point of view. So, as a whole, she is a strong card that is definitely worth considering to monster exchange for, but also be mindful of the fact that leaders get power crept the fastest. If you do get lucky in the artist event, which comes in the future, and you do get a Tori, you're going to have a stronger rainbow leader already, and you won't be using ideal as much. So is it worth the trade? It comes down to, do you think you're going to get lucky in the future, or do you just like rainbow-based teams? But at the same time, if you do have trade fodder available, I would highly consider picking up Akine. And if I had to pick one card to trade for from this event, it would be her. And not for her base form. Her base form is still strong because it is a 6-turn cooldown with the double skill charge. And it gives you 2 turns of Void, Damage, Void. But the reason why this is not the desired form is because that the future Illusory Artist card, as a leader, where did I put her down? She will make you Void, Damage, Void on a regular basis on a 3-turn cooldown. So the reason for this not needing the red form of Akine is because you don't need Void, Damage, Void so much anymore, because this artist girl, you're going to have 2 of them on a team. 2 out of the 3 turns, you're going to be having a Void, Damage, Void. So therefore, you can actually just double damage cap, or you don't even need to actually use VDP latent, whatever it may be. Point is, this active skill becomes somewhat redundant, and that's why her new green form is actually the desired form. Not only does it cover a potentially awkward color, red and green may or may not be awkward colors for rainbow-based teams. When I think about my Beach Sakuya Mariel team, Beach Mariel Sakuya team, I'm missing red and green, and it makes it easier to cover those colors, so that is helpful there. But looking at the Awakenings, she's got 2 skill charge, so her 18-turn cooldown is potentially 6. She's got 10 combo, 7 combo, and depending on the Super Awakening you choose, she could have 4 attribute for huge amounts of damage. Easily going to double damage cap there, which is meaningful, and her sub-attribute will also deal a meaningful amount of damage. In addition to that, she has potentially all the super resists. So again, great flexibility from a sub. You can either make her an incredible damage stick, or you can give her super resist to free up other team building aspects. And then this now 6-turn cooldown, because I'm going to assume you're hitting skill charge every time, because we like using 7x6 on rainbow teams. You get 3 turns of damage absorb and attribute absorption cancellation. It's almost 50% uptime, assuming, you actually hit skill charge every time. That's pretty crazy. New Year's Reach would have been quite strong with kind of the rainbow revival, so to speak, but Akine is just a better option because you don't really need 7 turns in all honesty, and having this just charge up repeatedly, much better personal damage, is just a meaningful card. And like I said before, leaders get power crept the fastest. Subs last for usually quite a long time, potentially, and a sub that counters damage absorption and color absorption, which are 2 mechanics that are basically guaranteed to show up in a given dungeon, is meaningful. So in a long-term perspective point of view, Akine is going to have great value moving forward. And like I said, if you were to monster exchange for just one of them, I would strongly consider her, because it's going to be a great boon to your rainbow-based teams. It's your damage absorb and color absorb solution basically for life. Big damage output, 4 skill boosts. There's no real downside to this card. And even if she is leader swapped into position, her leader skill isn't terrible to the point where you would die. You probably could at least tank and absorb stuff. In theory, she actually has a bulkier leader skill than Mariel and Sakuya, so, assuming everyone is at least a dragon type, not too bad. Point of the matter is, not a bad card overall when you really think about it, and I would monster exchange for her potentially. And then next is Valentine Sonia. So the 8-star cards, I think, just got completely ignored. And the reason why I say they're completely ignored is because they're just not strong enough to really be competitive. If you think about it, killers are just highly restrictive awakenings. If those were just double 7 combo, she'd be a little bit easier to use, justifying putting them on a team, because at least she does damage to all spawns. So she doesn't really fit on any given team. Awakenings are nothing special. Active skill, nothing special. I wouldn't even consider monster exchanging for her, even though it's a cheap trade. Her weapon assist is a team HP and double team RCV. Like, it's not terrible, but at the same time, we have better things out there. So sad to see Valentine Sonia getting no love, and Valentine's Nay also getting no love. And I have Valentine's Nay personally. I rolled her from a seasonal Super Godfest. I don't think I've really ever used her, really, so it's kind of sad. Her cooldown, I think, got reduced, but it's a 9-turn full cleric active skill with a board changer. 9 turns is quite long, and at the same time, like, Gung Ho Belial does exist in Dark, and depending on the type of dungeon you're playing through, Geru may be a sufficient cleric, because all you need is unmatchable and say MD2, and it's a little awkward. Like, there's nowhere to really fit her in. Like, she's got a weird spread of awakening. She can have 10 combo double 7 and a VDP with a dragon killer. And like I said, killers tend to be less helpful overall in terms of universal flexibility. But another problem is these 2 TPAs. Like, yes, they are helpful. They do add damage output, but at the same time, it's hard. Like, it doesn't really work in most teams. Maybe you could argue that she could be a Daytona sub if you're desperate for, like, a cleric for Daytona who does do large amounts of damage. She does work out in that sense, but at the same time, I'm not that impressed by her. And then if we look at her weapon assist, it's a bind immune of a team HP and enhanced heart combo. I guess this is a unique set of awakenings, and maybe there will be a point in time where you need all of these awakenings on a given card for whatever reason, and at least if it does overcharge, it is a full cleric active skill, so it's not terrible by any means, but at the same time, is this something that's worth chasing or monster exchanging for? Definitely not. I think I might convert my single copy, or maybe I have 2 copies. I might convert it to a weapon assist just to have it as an option, but I don't think it's worth monster exchanging for. So with that being said, those are all the monster exchangeable cards we can actually acquire. And Alynna is nice as a cleric. Akine is just, I think, the best choice overall. And Ideal is going to be the ideal rainbow leader until the artist event does come to North America. And now I want to look at the 7-star cards, because I mentioned already the 6 and 5 stars are just terrible. So for the first 7-star card, she is not an orb skin, so you can't purchase her, which is obviously a bit of a shame. Well, you can't acquire her without rolling, which I think is a shame, because I think she's actually pretty strong overall. She has a transforming card of 3 skill boosts, but when she does transform, she's actually quite a decent leader. And in theory, like, this is a solid amount of effective health. She has guaranteed activation, because all she needs to do is match fire and hearts, and her 2-turn cooldown gives you an RCV and a movement time buff, and then converts light to fire, wood to heal. So you don't get an attack buff, which is obviously a downside, but this is a sky-high attack multiplier. 625 times is actually quite high. So even though she doesn't get that attack buff through her active skill, you probably can get away with it. As long as you have an attack buff somewhere to override debuffs, you should be perfectly fine. And you get guaranteed activation, essentially, assuming you didn't have orb blocks and just orb troll in general. So solid leader skill overall, big auto follow attack. Just be mindful that you don't get bonus combos, so that can be a bit of a drawback, but not a bad leader overall. And if you want to use her as a sub, I actually think that's pretty nice as well, assuming, you know, you can fit in her on a given team, because her transforming aspect gives you 2 turns of damage reduction, but it's not haste. It's not necessarily going to help you get, like, multi-step transform. At 27 turns, it's quite long, but at the same time, RCV and movement time buff is helpful. Orb generation strong. Quad 7 combo with the VDP and the fact that her sub-attribute is red means she will be dealing meaningful amounts of damage, especially for a transforming card. But again, because you can't purchase her or monster exchange for her, it's something you have to roll, and I don't really encourage rolling. Her weapon assist is a skill boost with super follow attack and rows. It's kind of cool. It's got the RCV buff, movement time buff, attack buff, and 2 turns of haste, so it's pretty cool overall, but again, you can't acquire her. And now I want to look at the orb skin cards, because if you do have the means to purchase something and you feel like it will bring you enough joy and happiness, feel free to do so. Again, that is potentially a sensitive topic, so again, use your own discretion. So, for Alrescha, she is actually a respectable Seawolf alternative. If you don't have Seawolf, you don't have Sena, she can function as an alternative leader. But again, if you get either of those, arguably there's no real point in using them, especially if you roll your own Seawolf. So point is, like, it's like a band-aid. It would help you out just for a bit. From her Awakening's point of view, she's got respectable amounts of personal damage with her 10 combo Super Awakening. So 7, 10, VDP, some enhanced water, and fire combos. Not a bad Seawolf sub by any means. And her active skill is a self RCV debuff. Well, it's an RCV debuff to yourself, which overrides other debuffs, which is helpful. A movement time buff plus unlock and making 3 fire and 3 water orbs. So you don't get the hard orbs. And Sena does make hard orbs, even though he doesn't give the RCV debuff. But making hard orbs is usually quite a big deal on Seawolf teams, so a little bit of a drawback there. And at the same time, like, can you afford to fit her on a given team? Like, is she going to be doing enough for you at this point in time? Like, I feel like subs are getting so competitive at this point in time that it can be hard to fit in some things. And Alrescha, I think, is strong, but at the same time, it may be hard to fit her in because usually you need a cleric. Pop is pretty much always going to be a given card when I think about it for red teams. Valkyrie Seal is pretty much always going to be a given as well when I think about it. So, like, there's not much space for Alrescha. Like I said, Cleric, most likely Pop, Valkyrie Seal, one more sub slot. Can Alrescha make the cut? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe you need the shields from Alynna. Like, you get my point. Pop gives you the movement time buff. Seal gives you enough healing aspect that maybe you can just brute force your way through the RCV debuffs. Point is, I think with a deep enough box, Alrescha doesn't do enough overall. Pano is kind of cool. Like, again, if you roll them, that's pretty interesting. It does give a kind of cool weapon assist of a, combo orb. But, like, again, you have to roll them, and I'm just not going to really look at those too heavily. For Astraea, I think Astraea is actually a strong candidate for purchasing, and possibly one of the better ones to purchase from this. They're actually 4 orb skins, because, why not? And the reason why she is valuable is because for your Saphira or Saitama teams, you want to have strong subs, and she does fit that bill. She can have 4 skill boosts, which is a nice amount, and triple VDP with a single 7 combo, so meaningful amounts of damage when you make a box. But on top of that, she has the big super blob awakening, and that's when you match 12 or more orbs. So matching 12 or more orbs will give her 12 times personal damage. Strong likelihood she's going to be dealing a meaningful amount of damage, maybe close to damage cap, well, more than damage cap, close to maybe double damage cap. But this gives you some interesting flexibility because when you think about it, you have the option to make blobs. And making blobs gives you combo orbs because these teams make combo orbs because that helps them hit the bigger numbers for combo shields. And that's helpful. So on turns where you need to make combo orbs, Astraea is still dealing meaningful amounts of damage, and your other 10 combo cards might also be as well because all these combo orbs are flowing. But of course, whenever you do VDP, everyone else like Saphira, Saitama starts dealing meaningful amounts of damage. But point of the matter is, it's unique in the sense that she does damage in 2 different ways, and the fact that the blob boost is so efficient in terms of an attack multiplier, having just one of them is actually not too bad overall. Furthermore, she has Cloud and Tape Resist, which is pretty wild and crazy when you think about it just from a single card. Like, pretty nuts. Her active skill is also wonderful. It's a 3-turn cooldown, which means you can inherit something over top with relative ease. This is great. Delays, haste, shields, whatever you need. Damage absorption. Fun times can be had all around. And then after that, she gives you Fire Orbs Unmatchable, and then 1 turn of RCV buffing, Unlock, and then create 3 Light, Dark, and Heart Orbs. The Unlock is valuable because Saphira, Saitama teams may have issues with locked orbs. You're guaranteed to get rid of those. That is a big deal. In addition to that, you also make Heart Orbs. And Heart Orbs are huge. Shura does not make Heart Orbs. Astraea does. And Saphira, Saitama, neither of them make Heart Orbs with their active skill either. So this is actually quite a powerful active skill. And it's a 3-turn cooldown, so it'll be up on a regular basis. So if you don't have many other strong subs for your Saitama, Saphira teams, I definitely would consider purchasing this Orb Skin card if you have the means to do so, because they are actually quite strong and they're tremendously flexible. Just be mindful of the fact that they don't have bind immunity, they don't have skill bind resist, they don't have movement time, and they only have 8 instead of 9 awakening, so it makes me think they might get a buff in the future. But still, strong card right from the get-go. Weapon assists are actually quite cool as well, so for whatever reason, let's say you have multiple cards, well, multiple copies of her, you can have 4 or 80% poison resist and a combo orb awakening. Pretty cool, but the active skill is a bit too low cooldown. It might overcharge and you may not want that. And then the weapon is double team HP with a team RCV. You get 5 turns of damage absorption shield effects and 1 turn of 100% shield. 22 turn cooldown is a bit too long to really justify it because nowadays we're starting to see multiple spawns spaced out quite a bit that you can't hit them back to back and chain these longer absorptions. So I think it is strong. It's definitely a great weapon assist, not bad by any means, but things like Saitama's weapon assist gives you a skill boost at least. Bora's helmet gives you stuff. But again, it's still a strong weapon. So, like, I feel like, as a whole, like, it's a great sub for Sakura Saitama teams. And her second weapon is still quite strong. So, purchasing the Orb skin, I feel like, is no real major downsides in the sense that even if she gets power crept as a sub, it's still a respectable weapon assist overall. But I would still want to use her as a sub, at least at this point in time. Next is Valentine's Andromeda. And Valentine's Andromeda is actually strong for certain dungeons. I think she's actually a great choice for Shura 2 because devils are quite common, and these double devil killers are a bit of a pain. If there were anything else, her flexibility goes up so much more, but in Shura 2, where devils are prominent, her damage output is fantastic. Her active skill is an RCB debuff, so that means you overwrite other debuffs, and you get an Orb movement time buff, and then you bypass one turn of attribute absorption. Shura 2 has a single floor with attribute absorption, and by now we should be dealing more than enough damage to one-shot stuff, so she is just perfectly made. There's tons of RCB, tons of movement time debuffs. That attribute absorption is a pain, so if you do have like red or blue based teams and you need pluses, you enjoy the playstyle, Andromeda is a strong card overall. Just because the double devil killer doesn't work in every dungeon doesn't mean she's not weak. She does deal strong amounts of damage with double 7 combo and either a VDP or a 10 combo. So strong active skill, solid awakenings, useful card all around. Just be mindful of the fact that the leader swap is kind of bad, so just if it gets swapped there, it could be a little painful. But again, valuable card to have overall. And again, I feel like if it was monster exchangeable, maybe I'd pick it up. But Orb skin purchasing, I think it's a bit overpriced for exactly what it does. As far as her weapon assist goes, it's kind of cool awakenings, but this active skill is probably not necessarily something you want to have charge up all the time. It's a bit low impact for a weapon, but great for a card as a sub. And then finally we have Valentine's Venus, and she is the last Orb skin. In her base form, I can't really foresee any true great place to use them on because the dungeon bonus and the guard break are kind of worthless in most cases, especially if you're trying to take advantage of the TPAs and the 7 combos for Daytona. She's just not doing anything. She gives you a movement time buff, an attack buff, and damage reduction based on the number of TPAs. So in theory, you could have 100% damage reduction shield. I guess it's kind of cool, but like, I don't think it's necessary on your Daytona teams. Like, I don't think it's needed. She's kind of all over the place with her awakenings, like TPAs, blob, or 5 color attribute, 10 combo. Like, I don't know, it's just a bit all over the place. Not much focus. I don't think it's worth purchasing. Weapon assist, it'd be kind of cool if I had it, but I wouldn't seek it. 80% poison resist with that skill bind resist. So maybe as a shield for your Daytona teams, maybe it could be a cool shielding option, but I don't think it's really that great. I guess maybe for the painter in the future, maybe like the special leader for the illusory artist, like maybe because they do have TPAs on the team, maybe it could work out because then you have a modestly large shield. But again, I feel like they're just stronger shield options, and I don't think it's necessary. And especially because the dungeon boost and guard break are probably not going to have that much value. So overall, I think the only Orb skin that's truly worth purchasing is Astraea's. I think it has the most value overall. And from a single monster exchange point of view, if you had to only pick one, I would pick Akine. So with that being said, let me know what you think about this rare machine in the comments down below, and whether or not like just narrating and talking about like the Orb skin and or tradable cards is helpful at all, because I like to think it saves a bit of time. Regardless of all that, hopefully you all have a truly fantastic day. I wish you all the best luck in your own pad adventures, and happy puzzling.